Hi everybody, it's Great Grandmaster Dennis Ichi again. I have another story for you from my past. I think you're going to really like this one. This was one of the most intriguing and spellbound. I was just completely spellbound when I heard it. My mouth was literally open when I heard this man's story. This man's name is Ichi. He's a Japanese man who came to this country in 1962. He's now 80 years old. He's alive and well and practicing his martial art, Washin-Ryu, in New York. And when I was working with the Chuck Norris organization, Black Belt Magazine had a photo shoot at our studio. And there was a Joe Louis photo shoot and a Ichi photo shoot. And one of my future stories is going to be about the Joe Louis one. But Ichi, for some of you who don't know who he is, he's a Black Belt Magazine Hall of Famer. He was a Professional Karate Association National Kata or Forms Champion for 5 straight years. He was undefeated. That's quite a record. That hasn't been equaled even today. He's about 5'4", and he's a brick. He likes to do a lot of, he's been on the cover of Black Belt Magazine and Karate Illustrated, Inside Kung Fu, and all the magazines. And he's always shirtless because he's just ripped. And he says he never lifts weights. It looks like he pumps iron, he's on steroids, but this is natural. And he says he does all from his internal forms, breathing, and from push-ups. That's all he does. And he's just completely ripped. And so when we did the interview, when the Black Belt Magazine came to interview him, when they were finished with the interview, he stepped aside and he went over to his bag and he took off his uniform, his belt and his uniform. And when he took out his uniform, I was a white belt at the time, a naive white belt in 1970. He took off his uniform and there was a scar from his navel all the way around, halfway through his back right here, straight across, jagged scar. And I, being the naive white belt I would have never done it now, because that's not cool. But then I didn't know any better. So I said, "Sensei, what is that? Where'd you get that scar?" He looks around and he goes, "You got a minute?" I go, "I got all the time you want." So he sat down and he proceeded to tell me the story of how he got that scar. It seems that he was raised, get this, in a monastery in Japan. He was an orphan. And in that monastery, he learned martial arts. And there was a rival monastery across on the other side of the forest. And one day, he was walking through the forest. He didn't tell me where he was going, and I didn't ask, but he said he was walking through the forest when a member of the rival monastery approached him and challenged him to a fight right there in the middle of the forest. And he says, "What are you talking about?" He says, "I don't want to fight with you." And the guy proceeded to attack him, started punching and kicking at him. So he was defending. And all of a sudden, he says, he thought the guy was just kidding because he was just parrying and getting out of the way. All of a sudden, he felt something around his belly, and he put his hand on his belly and he looked and it was blood. The guy had a knife and he slit him all the way around from his navel to the middle of his back. He says, "Then I knew it was for real." He said, then the fight changed. The whole complexity of the fight changed. And the guy was kicking at me and I was blocking and dodging. So he said that as the fight went on, he started to get lightheaded and dizzy. And he figured, he was losing so much blood that's what was happening. So he was desperate and he didn't want to die right there. So the guy did a high kick and he said he punched as hard as he could right in the groin. And then everything went black. And he said, the next thing he remembers is waking up on a bed, a straw bed in the monastery with leaves and herbs wrapped around his stomach and a towel on his head, a wet towel on his head. And they told him that he was unconscious for 3 days because of so much blood he lost. And since they were in the middle of the forest, they didn't have medical help, professional medical help. So the monks in the monastery used all the herbs they knew to put on him. That's why he had such a jagged scar around his body. He said that they told him that they found that other person that cut him, they found him dead in the forest. He died from that punch. And and I was unconscious. They didn't think I was going to make it. And I woke up groggy, and I couldn't even believe that this happened to him. That's what he said. And I was just mesmerized by the story. My mouth was literally open, but he said, "This is a true story." He said, "That's why I'm still here today. When I survived this death match," he said, "it inspired me to go on to want to pursue my martial arts, to go to America and try to reach as many people as I could, to teach them the essence of the martial arts." And he inspired me quite a bit, being a white belt. He and several other people inspired me, but he was one of the people, because of our heritage are the same, we're both Japanese, that made me want to pursue martial arts and help people also.
So he died from getting uppercutted and the groin so hard he just died of shock?
Whatever. I don't know the medical reasons, but
that's pretty rough.
I know. A real death match.
Death by uppercut to the groin.
He was desperate. He was fainting. He was dying. He was lucky they found him.